Welcome to the Healthy Heart Show, where we pull back the curtain on conventional medicine and dive into the root causes of cardiovascular health. If you are concerned about high cholesterol, high blood pressure, heart attacks, stroke, or atrial fibrillation, this is the place for you. We will provide natural heart information that will help you prevent, treat, and reverse any ailment, leaving pills and procedures out of the picture. Here are your guides to holistic heart health, board-certified cardiologist and Amazon best-selling author, Dr. Jack Wolfson, and natural heart doctor, naturopathic physician, Dr. Lauren Latanza.
Hello, Dr. Jack Wolfson here, board-certified cardiologist, and welcome to another episode of the Healthy Heart Show, where our focus is on getting you to that 100-year heart. That's the key, the 100-year heart and beyond. We don't want to set any limitations here. We want to bring you the best information, the best guests, and I've got an absolute superstar with you today, a good friend of mine. His name is Dr. Fab Mancini. I'm going to say hello to Dr. Fab, and then I'm going to do a little intro. Dr. Fab, how are you this morning?
Amazing. It's so great to be with you today. And I'm looking forward to this because I know every time we get together, always some magic happens and information just flows, and looking forward to this moment.
You know, and obviously those of you who are listening to the audio and the podcast version, you don't get the pleasure of seeing Dr. Fab visually because the guy is like Benjamin Button. If you remember that movie, he's reversing in age, which I think is really a testament to how well he lives his life and obviously mentally and physically as well. But, you know, Dr. Fab is America's #1 healthy living expert, and he's been on the doctors, he's been on Fox News, CNN, he's been on every major station. Dr. Phil has interviewed him. He's got fantastic best-selling books, including The Power of Self-Healing. And then he also did a book, Chicken Soup for the Chiropractic Soul, part of the Chicken Soup series as well, that he can tell you about as well. Again, he's got podcasts, he's got television shows. He's also a widely acclaimed international speaker. So again, if you're out there and you're looking for a superstar keynote speaker that will absolutely blow away the crowd, because I've heard him speak several times from the big stage, and he absolutely brings it every single time. But again, Dr. Fab, welcome to the Healthy Heart Show. And I also want to say that, maybe we can start from here, because I've heard your story about really a very powerful story you share from when you were a child and how that kind of fast forwarded you through maybe some dreams of becoming a surgeon. I know you wanted to do that. And then obviously you were bit by the holistic and integrative bug, and then eventually would get a professional degree in chiropractic. So maybe take us through that if you would.
Well, you know, it's so interesting because I feel so blessed that at the age of 16, I had a dream that I saw myself as a doctor serving thousands of people. And then I went to my counselor and she says, well, what kind of doctor? And I said, well, that wasn't clear in my dream. So I said, what is the best doctor out there? And she said, well, the most intense doctorate program in medicine is a neurosurgeon. So I said, okay, then that's what I'm going to be. And I started really at a very early age, disciplining myself to study, disciplining myself to learn as much as I could. And because of my grades, I pretty much could go any pre-med program that I wanted. But there was a program in Dallas, Texas that only took 27 kids. And then they could go to any medical school they wanted if they passed it. And I was selected for that program. So that brought me to Texas. And I was studying all of the basic sciences, as you know, in pre-med, learning about primarily the thought process of healthcare. But then I was involved in a severe car accident that landed me in a hospital that I had done a rotation in as part of my studies. Called the orthopedic surgeon, and he said, look, I can give you painkillers and muscle relaxers, but you really need to go see my chiropractor. He took out his phone, called his chiropractor. I was there that afternoon. The chiropractor said to me, you know, Fab, you know what medicine is? Let me tell you what chiropractic is. And he explained it to me these 3 ways. Number 1, in our office, we're going to remind you every single day that the body has the ability to heal itself. Most people forget that our bodies are designed to heal. They're not designed to get sick. They're designed to heal. Number 2, that the nervous system of all the systems in the body was primary, because all the systems in the body depended on nerves in order to function properly. And in our office, we're going to really support your nervous system in a very holistic way. And then thirdly, we're not going to just manage your symptoms. That's what healthcare does. We're going to get to the root cause of the problem. Well, Dr. Wolfson, after 6 weeks of care, not only did all my symptoms went away, but I felt better than I felt my whole life. So I went back to my counselor in college and she said, well, let me introduce you to some chiropractors. I interviewed 62 chiropractors in 6 months. And before I graduated, I decided not to go to medical school, which I have been accepted to some of the biggest programs out there. And I chose chiropractic school because of this. I realized in those days, and there were no functional medicines or integrative medicine, there was only chiropractic promoting the banner of holistic health. And I chose it because I realized that the majority of the people, if they just change their mindset and their behaviors, they can prevent the majority of the illness out there, over 70% of them at least, that we call chronic illness. So that's where my journey began, and that led me into chiropractic school. Then I became an acupuncturist, I became a nutritionist, I became energy medicine expert. Anything that was holistic, I was obsessed with it. But even to this day, I can tell you, nothing beats a chiropractic adjustment, in my opinion, as a foundational thing for our health. And that's the reason that I've contributed so much to the health and wellness environment, because I'm a fanatic in finding ways to be able to support people naturally.
That's, really, it's a beautiful story again, how, right, you were thinking, okay, medicine would be, one particular way, and then just the innate, the spirit of the universe comes in and actually guides a true healer like you. And really, it's been able to allow you to springboard to so many different areas, television, and radio and public speaking, and impact millions of lives. And of course, as a best-selling author, really just tremendous, tremendous stuff. And my passion, certainly is to get people well using natural approaches from a cardiovascular standpoint, getting away from pharmaceuticals and procedures. And certainly everyone on my show knows that. But you've heard me say this before as well. I believe the doctor of chiropractic should be the go-to for all things health and wellness. Again, like you said, the power of actually the chiropractic adjustment, but then also kind of the whole surrounding philosophy. So can you maybe, dive into that a little bit as well, as far as how you feel, how some of the people who are listening to this podcast, why they should go see the doctor of chiropractic as really, that gatekeeper to health and wellness?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because in my 4th book, The Power of Self-Healing, I interviewed 50 people that heal when medicine told them that they couldn't heal. The traditional medical allopathic process didn't have any answers. And one of the things that I realized from that process is that there were different components to healing, but the chiropractic component to healing is very critical, because what all of those 50 people had was a holistic provider as part of their team. And a holistic provider is essential, in my opinion, as part of your team, because you get different perspectives. How many patients have we had that said, I wish somebody would have told me that this was available 20 years ago before I've had all these surgeries, or 20 years ago before I've had to take all these medications and now I've had all these complications, or 20 years ago where I've suffered thinking that I had to learn to live with this for the rest of my life, So on average, every survey that we've done in our profession in 126 years, over 80% of the people that we survey say that chiropractic has helped them. So that means we help over 80% of the people that we take in as patients. And the basic premise is very simple. The premise is, Didi Palmer, our founder in chiropractic, spoke about there were 3 main causes for dis-ease. And what he talked about was the fact that when the body is not at ease, not in harmony, not in homeostasis, if you're fancy with your terms, that means that the body is in disease state. And what does that mean? That the body is not functioning the way that it was meant to function. It's in a restless state. So what he used to say, that there were 3 things that we needed to pay attention to. 1, has there been any trauma in our life? Anything that could have caused this to happen? Number 2, is there any toxicity going on? And of course, we know that Many of our foods can be toxic because of all the preservatives, because of the overutilization of sugar and dyes and many other things. So we know that's an issue, but also our air, our water, those are things that can toxify the body. And then thirdly, he said autosuggestion, which is what people call mental health today. You know, the new science says that the average person has over 60,000 thoughts a day. 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts we had the day before, and 80% of them are negative in nature. So a lot of this mental health, anxiety, depression, all of these issues that we see today escalating is for what Didi Palmer used to call autosuggestion. So in chiropractic, we've always looked at the spine, the structure of the body, as a way to influence the function of the body, and we've dealt with that component. The autosuggestion is to remind people that we need to be more positive. There's so many studies that have shown that if you start being positive about your circumstances, there's a much healing effort that happens. And also the autosuggestion is the toxicity is cleaning up our diet the way that you have taught us for so many years, but also paying attention to anything that you put in the body that may have the potential of toxifying your body that may lead to side effects. Those are the things that we really focus on, and why I believe this profession has been so successful in the outcomes of their patients.
Well, you talk, obviously identifying that mental health is so important. And you talk about, again, how, you're referencing to, kind of 2020, 2021, where mental health worldwide is suffering more so than ever. Maybe can you touch on that? But then, okay, we can talk about how do we get positive thoughts? How do we escape from the constant negativity that we seem to be surrounded with that's so detrimental to our health?
Yeah, and I'm going to give you a little bit more than that. But from a mental perspective, we know that prayer and meditation, studies have shown, are two probably the best ways that you can set your mindset in a good receptive area to heal. The second thing is to be able to look at the circumstances. Let's say you've been diagnosed with a particular condition. Don't look at that as a life sentence. Look at it as an opportunity to shift mindset and behavior. That's what I train my patients with. So no matter what diagnosis I'm giving, I'm not going to look at it as, oh my goodness, I'm now a victim of that. No, you're not going to be another statistic. You're going to be able to look at it and say, I'm going to see, how can I look at that disease process differently? How can I look at that as a blessing in disguise? How can I look at that as a way of learning how my body really functions and what could have got me there in the first place? And then shift your behavior. What can I do different today to ensure that that will not be there tomorrow, that will not come back a year from now, etc. And you, more than anybody, knows that so many of your patients could prevent heart disease if they would just shift how they view their bodies and how they do things every single day. But then I took it further. As I started researching what are the three most powerful healing emotions, we found out that the first one is forgiveness. When we learn to forgive ourselves for the mistakes we made, when we learn to forgive others for the hurt that they've given us, we release a lot of anger, a lot of grudge, a lot of resentment, and those things change our chemistry, which leads us into a state of illness. The second emotion is gratitude. Gratitude, because most of us, even if we have a diagnosis or an illness we're going through, we have to realize that there's still a lot of good inside of us. There's still the potential of the body to heal. So we need to actually be grateful for the health we have, rather than putting all of our energy and attention on that 20 or 30% that is not working as well, right? We have a lot of systems in the body. Maybe one system is struggling, but hey, we got another 10 systems that are doing great. We have an organ that's failing, but we have other organs that are working. So it's shifting your gratitude towards the things that are going well instead of the focus on the things that are not going well is a very healing process. And the last one is unconditional love. We realize that in the world of science and environment, love is the greatest healer. So you have to be a little bit more patient with yourself, more loving with yourself, take care of your body like if it's the most important thing you have, because in reality it is. You can't trade it. You can't buy another one. How many millionaires, billionaires have we had as patients or we have interviewed over the years that will give everything back if they could regain a health that they lost while they were pursuing their millions of dollars? So love yourself a little bit more, and you start seeing how your body will begin to heal even faster.
That is, so I was just taking notes again. Forgiveness, gratitude, and unconditional love. That is just so poignant. And again, I can't help but thinking, right, is that if you had wound up as a neurosurgeon, would you be talking about any of these things? So really, how we get selected for the path that we are on is really incredible.
Well, and that's something to consider, because I come from, like you, the allopathic mentality of healthcare primarily, which over 80% of everything runs through. I get to appreciate that when you're speaking to a provider, understand that they're giving you advice based on the training they received. I rarely or hardly ever have met a provider that doesn't have the best interest of the patient. Maybe there's some out there, but that's not been my case. But I also realized that because they haven't been trained, it was important for me to seek out a different source of opinion, a more holistic provider, maybe a chiropractor, maybe an acupuncturist, maybe a homeopath doctor, a naturopath doctor. And when I got their opinion, it made me realize that opened a whole dimension for me to be able to consider what my options were. So now when one provider is saying, you have to take this for the rest of your life, and yes, there will be side effects, but you have to learn to live with that. And another one said, oh no, what we're going to do is we're going to give you chiropractic adjustments. We're going to put you in a great nutrition process. We got great supplements that actually science has proven that can help reverse this condition, et cetera, et cetera. Now, all of a sudden, I feel empowered. So that's why I get to appreciate. So when people come to me and say, well, my doctor said this is the only option. And I said, okay, but would you be open to the idea that maybe other providers, other professions in healthcare, other science out there has said something different? Would you be willing to try something else? What do you got to lose? And all of a sudden, they recognize what I recognized as a patient when that doctor, that orthopedic doctor, sent me to his chiropractor. I got open to a world of holistic health that I've never seen before. Never did any of my professors ever said, hey, Fab, remind your patients that the body can heal itself. Hey, Fab, remind your patients that the body has systems that are organized to be able to help support whatever they're dealing with. Hey, Fab, remind the patients that in order to focus on symptoms, they should really be paying attention on the root cause of what caused that symptom in the first place. And that's what changed my life. And the reason probably that I've been so passionate over 35 years in this space to drive people to be able to consider a different option.
The Healthy Heart Show will be right back after we take this quick break to hear from our sponsor. Would you like to drink great tasting coffee that's also good for your heart health? Cardiology Coffee is your answer. This 5-star rated coffee is delicious. It's a gourmet coffee that begins with whole organic beans, hand-selected and carefully roasted. It's tested and certified to be free of pesticides, mold, and other toxins. Cardiology Coffee is great for your heart, and you're going to love how it tastes. Order now online at cardiologycoffee.com. Now back to the Healthy Heart Show.
And I think that's really what I try and tell people as well, is that, this isn't the 1970s anymore where it's my way or the highway as a medical doctor, like you got to do this. Now, again, the internet, there's so many different books. There's YouTube videos, and you can listen to Dr. Fab on YouTube and also at drfabmancini.com. Again, there's so many different ways to touch holistic providers like us. And that just opens up this whole possibility of, hey, let's just keep all options on the table. Sure, we can listen to the medical side, but let's listen to some other opinions, and then you, the educated consumer, make the best choice, right? You did all your research about your house and about what car you should buy, and whatever it may be. Do more research into your health and really see what the options are. I know you respect medical doctors. I respect my fellow, medical doctors. emergency care, trauma surgeons. It's all necessary. But I will, say this is that, when it comes to prevention, the medical community really has nothing. We both know that. And I'm a little bit more cynical than you are, because I've sat in some of those rooms again with the moneymakers in the medical profession. And I'm not going to surprise you with this, but sometimes, right, quote unquote, health decisions by the doctors are made with financial incentives, behind it. It's just human nature to think that people are influenced by money. That's for sure. So, you kind of touch, again on this, I want to go back to this real quick: forgiveness, gratitude, and unconditional love. Gratitude seems like it's the easiest thing out of that, but as far as, it's easy for me to say, okay, thank you for, for what I have. I, Dr. Jack Wolfson, I may be losing my hair and getting a few more wrinkles, but I still feel good. In my brain, I'm still, 21. I mean, so the gratitude, so I'm grateful for that. So thank you. But again, sometimes, especially right now, it seems like it's so easy, and the world is so polarized, right? I mean, it's so polarized in so many different areas, and including now healthcare. How do we find that unconditional love? How do we find well, maybe let's just focus on that. How do we find that unconditional love for people when it seems so easy to be divisive and, opposite spectrums?
That's a great question. And all I can tell you is it begins with our unconditional love, right? I mean, I have to respect that my body is my body. No one will ever take care of your body or even knows your body better than you. So the unconditional love begins there, to recognize that this thing we call our bodies, we only get one of them. And we get to make choices every day, whether we're going to take care of it or we're going to actually break it down. And unfortunately, I can tell you that most people are making choices that are breaking their bodies and their systems and their organs down to the point of getting disease or illnesses. So for me, it begins with me. So Louise Hay told me one time that the thing that really changed in her life is when she realized that when she woke up in the morning and she brushed her teeth and she looked in the mirror, she didn't focus on imperfections, the wrinkles, the lost hair, the change that maybe you gained some weight or whatever. In fact, the first thing she did every morning was to look at that mirror and say, I love you, Louise. That's all she did. I love you, Louise. And then she told me, she said, Fab, I realized that if I don't wake up every day telling myself I love myself, that may be the only time that day that somebody would tell me I love you. Maybe the only time that month that somebody would tell me I love you. Maybe somebody that year, maybe the only time that year that somebody tells me. So you begin every day with you loving yourself. Then change the focus. Don't focus on the imperfections. We're human. We're not perfect beings. Focus on the things you like about yourself. So you know what? Today you look in the mirror and yes, you've gained about 20 pounds. And yes, your hair is thinning out or maybe it's turning gray. And yes, perhaps you're getting a little bit more wrinkle, but focus on your eyes. Man, I still love my eyes. Focus on your smile. Focus on some other part of your body that you love. And that's all you need to do is shift your focus into the positive. That's another way to love ourselves. The third way is to make better choices every single day. Not only on the way that we exercise and move our bodies, make a choice to move your body today for 20 to 30 minutes some way. Make a choice to go for a walk, ride a bike, do whatever just to get some motion. Make a choice to actually eat more organic food. Like I have a rule that over 50% of our plate has to be vegetable. That's a simple rule. Whatever your plate is, over 50% is to be vegetables. Why? Because we know the vegetables are the healthiest source of nutrition for our body. If you're going to do proteins, I try to keep my proteins between 4 and 6 ounces maximum. I find that 4 ounces is more than enough protein for me, regardless of whatever protein. If you want to do a little bit of fruit, do maybe half a cup of fruit, but don't do a lot of fruit. There's some sugar in the fruit. But at least that's better than having cake or having something that is cream or something that is sugary. So make sure you do that. But those are the action steps of how we do. Now, regardless of the differences of opinion on healthcare, the best way to unconditionally love others is to understand that their opinion is based on their training, like I said earlier. Your medical doctor will never tell you to take vitamin D3, perhaps, on an average basis. But we all know how important that is. So to take, maybe 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C, or to take some zinc, I also add something that I found to be extremely effective, which is nanocolloidal silver. And I find that supports my immune system while during this difficult time. So you're not going to find that in your medical doctor. That's why I keep reminding you that it's okay. Whatever their opinion is, love them for their opinion. They're telling you what they're being told, right? So understand that. Don't judge them for that. But then go ahead and seek out the other providers that have a different opinion that can be the life changer for you. And those are the ones that I would start with, because the medical opinion should always be the last resort of introducing a pharmaceutical, a surgical procedure, or anything that has the potential of being a risk or potential side effects. The natural holistic world, you've minimized, almost completely eradicated side effects and possible side effects, because we deal with nature. We deal with holistic things, and the chances of that are less than anything else that you can do in healthcare. So that's the way that I would unconditionally love those providers that are now trying to persuade me to think in their way.
Well, I mean, this message again that you're bringing right now is obviously so important for anybody who's listening, obviously with cardiovascular issues. When you wake up in the morning and you say, that you love yourself, and point out all of the amazing things that are going on with you, obviously, physically or emotionally, and focus on the positive relationships, that you have in your life, and maybe even kind of future planning of what's going to be going on, in your future, that are all positive minded. And undoubtedly that's going to help people with whether it's blood pressure, heart rhythm issues, cardiomyopathy, and then of course you can take it into brain-based diseases, cancer, autoimmune, digestive issues, for sure. So that stuff is all fantastic. And again, like, Dr. Fab, when I listen to you talk, I think about every time that I ever see you. You talk the talk and you walk the walk. You're smiling, you're happy, you've got such a positive energy, and that's so infectious to those around you. I know that again, when you see Dr. Fab, in person, it's it's a hug, it's physical contact. You feel that just such positive energy emanating from you. It's so spectacular. Tell me again now, again, like your message is undoubtedly impressing so many people here. Tell me some good places where people can find out more of, essentially everything about you and a lot of what you're, discussing.
It's interesting because over the pandemic, I went ahead and added so much to my website as far as resources for people. So if you go to my website, drfabmancini.com. I think you can see it in my name right underneath it, drfabmancini.com. If you go there, you can actually, I have a free membership to a virtual site that has thousands of hours of not only lectures, but podcasts and radio shows and information that would allow you to live health to the optimum. And that's one of the things I did during the pandemic, because thousands of people were calling me saying, hey, where do I get this? Where do I get that? And it was driving me crazy. So I hired a service to put all of that into a virtual component, and I'm giving it away for people. That way people can have it. They can benefit from my 35 years of supporting the health of humanity, and they can be a part of it. I usually charge $500 for that, but it's free. So you just go there and you just put your name and your email, and then you start getting access to everything that I have in there. But I want to go back to one point that you said, Dr. Wolfson, that I listened to one of your podcasts, and you remind me of something that I think is important to really bring about in this message. And that is, you're a big fan of being joyful and being happy. And, in my book, I wrote about how emotions turn into chemistry, and that chemistry can either break our bodies down or heal our bodies. And happiness is one of those things that come from forgiving, being grateful, and loving ourselves. That's the byproduct. The byproduct is all of a sudden you have the ultimate emotions that would change your chemistry to produce oxytocin, which is a very healthy hormone, or norepinephrine, or some of the things that we know that the body that produces naturally. And that's one of the things that I would encourage each one of you today. Gauge yourself from 1 to 10. How happy am I? And if you find yourself in a low end, what could I do today to make me a little bit happier? Maybe go back to a hobby that you've given up. Maybe release some of the responsibilities and the weight on your shoulders that you feel with those around you. So that way you're not swallowing all that stress. Maybe do something a little bit healthy, like pick up something new that you've always wanted to do. Maybe make a new friend. Maybe, do something to start enjoying what you do in your work a little bit more. Start falling in love and be passionate about what you do. All those things will add to you becoming more happy. And that really is what all of us should be striving for, because the pursuit of happiness is what allows us actually to be at our greatest state of healing.
Yeah, no, that's such great stuff. And again, like, we talk about happiness, and we also talk about, it's often been said, of course, for so long, right? Laughter is the best medicine, and finding that happiness. Happy people, I find, like, don't get sick, certainly compared to the people who are not happy. And every time I take a history on someone who's had a heart attack or some cardiovascular condition, there was always something going on right beforehand that just led to their unhappiness, and whether it was stress or fear, anxiety, and then of course, how social isolation is going on right now more so than ever, how all those things are problematic. Let me ask you this. When we talk about, again, in some of these relationships, how do we know when, again, we can try to mend relationships and repair relationships and discover the best in those relationships, but how do we know, is there a finite point when we could say, well, okay, this relationship is not working out and it's best to move on?
It's interesting because sometimes we find ourselves that those relationships are within our home family. We may have a very toxic parent, or a parent that is on a destructive mode and is wanting to take us with them. We may find a sibling that now all of a sudden is an addiction pattern, or it's got some kind of behavior patterns that are very destructive, and they're trying to pull us there. So what I typically do is, first of all, the number one thing is to recognize is that we don't have any control over anybody outside of ourselves. We only have control over us. When you get to that point, you realize that somebody else has the power and the decision and the right to make whatever decisions they want for them, but they don't have that to us. That's very important to understand. Now, if you find yourself in a relationship, regardless of what it is, in which the other party is trying to bring you down, not only in the way they eat, right? Because you're trying to eat healthy. You just came from a podcast from Dr. Wolfson, and you realize these are the things that I need to do, but they're tearing you down. They're not giving you the opportunity to do that. Then you either have to discipline yourself to limit how that person will impact you, or if he gets to the point that they will not, then separate yourself from that person and don't allow them to impact you negatively. And I've seen that happen. I've seen marriages that have had to break up in order for the parties to survive, because if they would have kept in that marriage, they would have not only destroyed themselves, but they would have destroyed everyone around them. And that's where the children, unfortunately, I've had a lot of parents that say to me, oh, I don't want to impact my children if I think of a divorce, even though I can't stand her, I can't stand him for the last 10 years. I mean, that's very common out there. But imagine this, are you giving your children a better example by not addressing the issue? Or are you giving them a better example to always stand up for themselves and say, my self-worth is higher than anybody else's opinion, and I'm not going to let anyone else determine how healthy, how positive, how successful, how wonderful I'm going to be today. That is up to me, that you make that choice. No one else can make that choice for you. So the time for separation or breakup is when you feel that the other party, that you've exhausted every possible way to let that party be a part of that journey that you want to take. If you cannot, then you have to do it for yourself. You have to love yourself enough to say no to something that you feel is good, but it's actually turning into something that is destroying not only your health, but potentially your life.
And these comments just remind me as you go along, it's really, I know you are proud and your book, the Fab Life, and really just the Fab Life as far as, this fabulous life of, again, eating the right foods, living the right way. And then obviously the mental aspect of it, the health, the mental health and the wellness that goes along with all this. And it just emanates from you, Dr. Fab Mancini. drfabmancini.com is where you got to go for just so much fantastic information about living the Fab Life. Let me give you the final word, and then I'll close it down.
Well, the one thing that I would encourage you to do is to live with a sense of urgency. One of the principles that I believe in that has helped a lot of people get well is that we take every day like if it's our last day. So don't worry so much about your negative habits that you did yesterday, about especially your heart health. Don't worry about what you want to do tomorrow. Focus on what you can do right now. This one meal today, this one exercise today, this meditation or prayer today, this selecting the people that I choose to surround myself today with, keeping that job that is making me sick or releasing that job so I can get a job that makes me healthy. Whatever that is for you, live with a sense of urgency. And Dr. Wolfson, I have found that when I do that, then I have a much better potential to have that healthy heart at 100 years old than if I just keep thinking, okay, one day when I get to be 100. No, the only way that your heart will be healthy at 100 if you make good choices today. That's the only way that I've ever been able to determine that. So be selective on your choices and always remember you're worth it. You are worth it. Even if other people around you are telling you not worth it, we're reminding you you're worth it. So make a good choice today.
Beautiful words, fantastic words. And you're right, it's just, we're one decision away from absolutely changing our lives, whether it's, again, like your next meal, if you make it healthy, or you listen to this and then you walk outside right now and you go for a walk, or, a jog or a hike, around the neighborhood, a bike. I mean, again, it really is, it's that urgent. You're right. When you make that change, it instantaneously, again, I say that all the time regarding food. It's like, we're just, if your next meal is a healthy one, now it starts to snowball and make a difference. So again, Dr. Fab Mancini, drfabmancini.com, wonderful, wonderful stuff. So much more to dive into. Again, I appreciate you being on the Healthy Heart Show. I'm Dr. Jack Wolfson, cardiologist, the Healthy Heart Show, your home for the 100-year heart. We'll see you next time with some more life-changing information. Be well.
That does it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Healthy Heart Show. Please help us get the word out by liking and subscribing to our podcast and our Facebook page, Natural Heart Doctor. Please show support for our podcast sponsor, Cardiology Coffee, your resource for organic, antioxidant-rich, mold and pesticide-free coffee shipped straight to your door. Learn more by adding @cardiologycoffee on Instagram and visiting cardiologycoffee.com. This podcast provides materials for information and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. We encourage you to contact your physician for any of the health issues discussed here.